the bigger the budget, the more people are lining up to make sure you're not going to violate the commercialism of their film. When you get on one of those pictures, it's really important to identify all those characters. And really pay attention to the dynamic here. It's a group, it's being made by a group, and you have a director and you have producers and you have a picture editor. You may have a music supervisor, but you're going to have executives, and you're going to have the executive that actually is responsible for the budget, and then you're going to have the studio head. And some of these very large pictures, every single one of them will have a say. Every single one of them has a certain amount of power, and it's crucial to sort of identify them and take personal responsibility for your communication with them. What sort of communication do you need to have with them? I've gone so far as sometimes to copy the head of a studio that I know is looking in on a picture on what we're doing, just to make sure that I'm not off on some tangent that is never going to get paid for, that's never going to get accepted. Because I've learned the hard way. I've stuck with my director through thick and thin, and ultimately that director didn't have the power to say this is what we're going to do.
I think also a huge difference that we might not want to talk about is test screenings and how much we hate test screenings, because the more money, the more dollar figure, that is money. The more people and the more it becomes a business and more about how much we're going to make off this and not about the art that or the story you're putting out. I mean, the test screenings are awful, and they are what force us here on this panel as composers to have to ape temps and things like that, because you're on a big picture that tested through the roof. Don't change a damn thing.
For me, one of the things that I love about indie films, they don't treat me like I'm ignorant. And I love that. I love the fact that when you watch an indie film, you have to bring something to the film. And I've worked on some big films where the opposite is true. And I think a lot of it has to do with what you're talking about, the test screenings, because they're looking for that number. They're looking for that first weekend, what that number is going to be.
So many of the decisions that are being made are fear-based. People are afraid of their jobs. People are legitimately afraid for their jobs. If this movie doesn't do well, they're going to be fired in 6 months instead of in a year and a half. People are afraid because of their investment. And so it becomes very difficult to trust people's direction.